This is my talk. I will talk about the art direction for small teams, and I will dedicate this talk mostly for I will say, for the managers, executives, game designers, everyone who are not in the art direction field. But the artists also will be interested in that because I will not show any hints how to do your art better or how to make your setting and style much more for the audience. I will just show the pipelines and workflows, which I use it during the whole process in my working days. So basically, that's it. This is me. I'm an art director right now for at least 5 years. I have in the background, as I already mentioned it, comic art. So I have started in 2004 in an Estonian local newspaper, weekly newspaper. I made a lot of comic strips about politics. And after that, I work a little bit in traditional animation studios. And then I switched to the game dev. So basically, the game dev cover all other areas for me, and I decided to stay there. I spent 10 years in outsource. I have in the background works with the really big AAA titles like Alan Wake, the Star Wars, the Teeny Tiny, the part of the Borderlands as well, and not remember all the projects, but yeah, let's go forward. So basically, this is the 4 projects which I have been involved with last 5 years. So the first one is what I'm working right now. I already showcased it yesterday, this game. And other things also something I have been works last 3 years. And the last one is the one example of the idea which has developed visually by me for the TV animations for kids. And just a short advertisement of my game, what I'm working on right now. It's a Get Back game about a delivery guy who actually lives in a conspiracy world, and you will need to get the parcels from the client to point B. And this is like the whole idea, to make the game not just about the delivery guy, but about really funny ways how to deliver the parcels. For example, you can jump, you can make tricks, you can just break with the pedestrian, and so on. So basically, it's really dynamic. And right now, we try to find a partner to expand the team a little bit more. So let's get back to art direction. What means art direction and what responsibilities usually art director should take. So the first thing is the team. That means that if you are an art director, most of the artists think that when they became the art director, they will just do like establish the style and set up the setting and like that's all. But in the facts, usually they are wrong. The most important thing is the team. You will use your team as your hands. You will need to help the team. You will need to be friendly with team. You will need to communicate with team correctly, write the guidelines, show examples, and do whatever it needs to make the team better. The deadlines is something what included in the art direction pipeline. You will need to set up all the deadlines with the managers. You will need to estimate all the production timeline. And this is the second thing, what is really important, the game design. I put it here because you, as an art director, should work with a game designer like spine by spine, step by step, because any mechanic, any narrative idea should be represented somehow from your artist perspective. And you will work with the game designer, and you will need to approve his idea that it's possible actually to implement those in the game after, or maybe change it. And the technology means the engine. You will need to know the engines. You will need to know the restrictions of engines, for example, the resolutions, the deliverables, how the files should be named, I don't know, naming convention, and so on. So basically, technology is a thing that you will need to cover with the developer, and the art. It's also one of the important parts. You will need to have a really huge, wide experience about the colors, the composition, and other things to use it during the process to show different aspects of the gameplay, of the narrative, of the UI, and everything. So let's go forward. I just put this meme here. I created it by my own. So basically, there is so many meanings about the art direction. Most of the guys actually think that art direction is it's something like, for example, my mother thinks that the art direction, when I go to work, I do the project by myself. Like I just like magically painted it somehow. But in fact, actually, I just sitting on the computer and just approve it or decline some different concepts, trying to put the feedbacks and doing a lot of this bureaucracy work, I will say. Actually, some of the friends think that we as an art directors usually not help project, but try to harm project, try to distract everyone from the work, like say, hey, this is bad, just redo that, and doing like the overall, the painting, like we are someone who pretend to work, but we are not work, we're just trying to do something. But in the facts, what I think myself, I think that we as an art director should be in the flow of the project. We should be connected with any kind of different departments, like a sound design, like a designers, UI, developers, because everyone should be should have an input to represent the input through the graphics. And the graphics will be the most important for you, and you will need to show the graphics to the audience through your game, and the graphics should match the audience, which the stakeholders actually use it before when they game design it, everything. So this thing, it's just a small example of the art Bible. Usually in the big studios, like a AAA studios, they have art Bibles, and they try to include in art Bible as much as possible information to be helpful for other departments to work with. And they usually put there the guidelines, some tutorials, some helpers to understand the project better, to understand the world better, to understand the setting, and so on. So basically, you can see there is a lot of things. I will not read those because they are already here. Yeah, but yeah, this is like the screenshot of the usual Bible, art Bible ideas, but it depends on the project. Each art Bible completely different. Some of the art Bible could be like in one page with one image. Some of the art Bible could be like a book. For example, when I been in work with the guys from what was the name of this company? Teeny Tiny Borderlands. They have a art Bible like this, like a 500 pages. And you will need to like step by step doing everything by the art Bible, because if you will not do that, you will get the feedback from the art director. And yeah, let's break down a little bit graphics. What means the graphics for art director? This is the only one thing what we are working on. It's the graphics. And what means the graphics? It's a gameplay. That means that this is the camera angle. This is the view of your game, how it looks, how it feels. This story means the cutscenes, means the comic, or I don't know, the characters, and also the characters. The character developments, I think, is the most important part in art direction, because the characters actually represent the whole idea of the game usually. And there is interesting examples. I already seen those projects where the companies actually spend like 100,000 euros to develop one character, for example, for a main one. And it's really tough, yeah, to make a really good, comprehensive character for your game. Achievements, UI, which is also really, really important, because the player will see UI anytime on the screen. He will see it every day when he will play it. And it's a static, it's always on the screen. You will see it, and you will need to figure out how to make it really good and stylish. Animation, VFX, as well important. Oh, I forgot to mention this thing. So I just put this diagram here to show that not only the knowledge of the art and the management is important for the art direction, the understanding the data is also really important, because I know that the most of the data usually goes to the game design, and the game designers usually use the data to create ideas for the mechanics. But we as an art directors also should use the data, because in this world right now we are consumer related guys, and we need to appeal our audience with the different aspects. For example, you can see there is a primary motivations for male gamers, and there is a competition, destruction, completion, fantasy, like from the bigger to the lower. And when you will work on the graphics, if you have a vision from the stakeholders, for example, and they choose like a male players, middle-aged demographically, and you will need to understand how to develop the visuals by knowing the diagrams from data, which already somewhere published it in the internet. It's a lot of places to gather those. So let's talk a little bit about the setting and style, how to I will not talk about how to establish the setting and style. I will just show the difference between the different settings and styles. So basically, the first one is the post-apocalyptic. You can see that it's a destroyed city with the different cars, and it's in a realistic style. And I already can imagine that this fits much more to the male, because I already seen the diagram before where the graph show that the male actually loves distractions. Okay, so the sci-fi, it's really closed niche. There is a lot of guys who play in the sci-fi, but if you not really know this niche, and if you not playing this type of game, not reading this type of books, I think it's really hard for you to develop this type of niche. The fantasy, it's the most common thing, because actually it's matched for a different type of audience, for males and females, because everyone loves the fairy tales. Males loves the war and everything what usually in the fantasy games. And so basically, another aspect of the fantasy that you can make in a realistic style or in a hand-drawn or any kind of style, it could be fitted. And the fantasy right now is most common one, but you need to keep in mind that most common setting means that you will have much bigger companies who will fight with you for the audience. And the realism as well is the contemporary realism, means that it's a completely real setting in the realistic style. Usually it works for the sports game and something like that. this is another example of the different data services which you can use, the sensor tower. And when you have a vision of your game, you can gather data from your competitors and find out how they work on the different mechanics, how they use the UI, and so on. Basically, as I said before, usually it's the work of the game designer, but you as an artist should work with the game designer step by step and do everything all together, because everything what is designed should be represented in art. And this is the also example of the Steam stats page, or you can use the Steam Spy to gather data for PC games. This is, I just want to show you one example of the game which we have developed visually. So basically, establishing the setting and style starts from the idea to make 6 different versions in completely different ways. Like you can see that there is a horizontal, there is a vertical, there is a different type of styles, there is a different type of software used to create the pipeline for a workflow. And when the designer came with the vision, like we will need to sell that game for a girl audience, we understood that the watercolor and the dark fantasy works much better for our idea, and develop later updates for that. Okay, also I want to mention about the different goals for different type of art direction. So there is so many different companies, and each company have a different goals. For example, there is a pre-production, and art director in a pre-production company will do one thing. There is production, which means that the style and setting are already established. You will need to communicate with the team and give a guidelines how to complete the really big bunches of assets in the same style, in the same setting, in a really closed period of time. And co-production and outsource, it's pretty the same. That means that usually there is already art director who will come to you, and you will work with the other art director to find a way how to work with your team, but for other guys. And the client work usually means it's a freelance. I think that the creation of art Bible, it's usual what the people ask from art director, and support of the game means that you just prepare an assets for a social media and so on. So basically, sometimes the support of the game also need to have an art director on board to match the style of the game. Let's get back a little bit to the most important thing for the art direction is the vision. If you don't have a vision in your game already established, for you will be really, really hard to work as an art director. You will always try to find the ways how to make everything in your opinion if you will not have this thing. But this thing which actually how to say, collapsed 3 parts, like a picture, values, and purpose. Picture means the visual parts, the values means the business, and the purpose means the motivation for the team. And all these 3 things should be somehow connected to each other, and then you will find the vision. A few words about the vision, why you need it, you will need to understand why you need it, how to define it, and how to work with it. You can ask this question to ChatGPT, I think. It's the simplest thing to do. Yeah, but usually you will need to answer those questions, and then you will define the part of the vision. And also I show this graph to show you that data also could help you to understand the vision of your project. And there is an examples of the Pixar and the Disney, how they use their vision to develop the most important parts in the production. For example, there is the first image show the Frozen. They use it like everything what is connected to the snow, to the frozen things, and they realize like, oh, this is thing that we need to develop, and we will spend a lot of money for that. Like maybe half of production budget will come to fit that vision idea. And the cars as well shows that they create the ground locking. They spend a lot of money to develop it, and after that they made a really good cartoon about the cars. Few more words about the team. So basically, a team also is really hard to work with the team because everyone have a different opinions, and you as an art director should listen the guys because you need to be in a friendship with everyone. If you will be like aggressive one, no one will want to work with you. And I find just a small solution for that. I just usually make something like a matrix for a different type of players in the studio game, you know. And for example, we have 3 guys who do different stuff differently. The first one, first guy do the concept art, characters, 3D artists, UI elements in a bestest way. Yeah, the second one work on the characters really good, but he work on other things, but not so good. And the third guy works on the UI much better than other things. But for example, I can speed up a little bit production if I will understand what they are good at. And for example, I see that there is things what we could do first. For example, we choose the characters and do all together characters like a one team. And this is the small idea how to communicate with your team. But believe me, if you will have more than 3 people, it's much harder to communicate with. And yeah, I think that's all. Thank you.